Welcome to this next episode of YouTube, where it's been a busy week for wolf care. We did an x-ray of Luna's leg. It's more or less a follow-up and just to see how, as a yearling, we know that her bone growth has completed, to see how things have evolved. As you watch these videos, you see that she's extremely active. She does continue to have some issues with the joint. The plate that was put in her leg when she was a month old is doing really well, but the joint is not, the top of the femur is just not fitting in with the socket real well, which is probably why she has that hop or a little bit of a limp to it when she overexerts herself. But as you watch the clips here today, that was Denali on top of the den there, you see some very active yearlings, and that's really what wolf care has been kind of dealing with. We've had temperatures that have been cooling off at night, and these wolves are stimulated by the cooler weather, possibly time of the year. They're starting to get a little bit more active and a little bit more intense, especially in this yearling testing. So we see Luna and Bolts obviously going back and forth with each other, jaw sparring, wrestling, doing typical yearling things. But we also see them asserting themselves a little bit more, which is very typical between their first and second year. Wolves reach maturity at, again, 18 to 24 months. And so we're starting to see where they're going to fit in the rank order. We've talked before about Luna being the only female, and she's obviously top of the rank, and you'll see various clips here where she's definitely showing some dominance. But got to figure it out, and we got to figure it out from Aiden's perspective. This is Aiden in a subordinate role over here. He still treats them like they're pups sometimes, even though their testing can get a little bit much sometimes. But how Aiden and Luna interact is really what we're keyed into and what we're kind of watching. Now, Luna could choose to pair bond with another male and may not be Aiden, but at this point Aiden's been very socially engaging with Luna, and they seem to support each other. In this clip, Luna actually kind of starts going after Denali. Denali's got a tucked tail, airplane ears, hackles, certainly doesn't like the focus. Aiden's right there. He's kind of keeping a little bit of a distance from it, but he's right there and does a ride up on Denali and tries to help get him to roll over. So there does seem to be the two of them asserting dominance together, and that's something that we will typically see. Like I say, Denali is lower ranking than Aiden, and so he's on the bottom of the male rank order right now. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to stay there. It depends what Bolts does, and the alliance that Bolts has with Luna might be an important thing to factor in here. But when Luna gets a little bit of dominance, and again, Bolts is high tail kind of going after Luna, you see her in a tucked tail in what we call a crouch position. Very, very defensive position, very threatening. She does not like it. That was a concern when we had Luna out for the x-rays. We had to actually hold her at 8 o'clock on Monday night in order for a Tuesday morning 8 a.m. exam. We hold for 12 hours so that there's no chance of them having food or water prior to the immobilization. She did not like to be separated, and when we brought them back together, we brought Luna in with Aiden, and to make sure that those two kind of came out of the holding together, and then 15 minutes later let Bolts and Denali out. Bolts did show a high tail towards Luna when he came out to greet her after the exam. But Bolts seems to be controlled a bit by Aiden, and this is a clip of Aiden asserting some dominance over Bolts, and then Denali just kind of right in there. Aiden lets him run up the hill, and Denali follows him into the woods and makes sure that he rolls over on his back and shows subordinate posture, and Luna is obviously helping in that case. So that's what's going up here. That's Bolts with a tail tucked running away, and here, like I said, Aiden showing a little bit more assertion over Bolts. I think Bolts is going to be one of those 2-year-olds who continues to push and push and push, and will continue to probably get more and more dominance from Aiden to be in a subordinate role, and then Denali will take advantage of that. But if it's not led by Aiden, it doesn't appear that Denali is going to assert himself. So a lot to watch as we approach the fall season. And one thing that we can do is we can keep using food as a distraction, keep using food multiple times a week, small amounts that allow them to kind of forage together and, hopefully use that as a distraction when we're seeing something's getting a little bit too much, which is Luna here. That's Denali, who's kind of whining. Luna's pinning Denali and making him whine. Hard to believe, considering Luna is about an 80-pound wolf, pinning a 130-pound wolf, but size doesn't matter. It's all about attitude, and Luna's got a lot of that. So like I say, when we start seeing this, the evidence that we're seeing here that this is not a social engagement is Denali's got a tucked tail. That tucked tail is fear-based, and so whenever we have that kind of fear-based response, we know that we are dealing with something that's a little bit more intense, and we'll watch those intense interactions. And not saying that food will always draw off a situation like this, but food is a good distractor, especially if we can catch it early enough when we don't let things intensify too much. Now, we have to let some of these things play out. I mean, these are normal ritualized dominance, and this is actually what reduces a lot of problems later on, is that everybody knows their place. Everybody has a role, and so we aren't always going to stop them. We are, like I say, going to keep our eye on it, and if it does get, we have some parameters. If it gets to be 4 or 5 minutes and there's a wolf that's a continual and a tucked tail fear response, we'll try to distract and try to see what's going on. Sometimes it can be an external factor that's creating stress, so that might be people around the fence or work projects going on. Those things we can control, those things we can alter, and we will keep an eye on stress levels, especially as we get into fall here, and make sure that things are calm for the exhibit. So this is Aiden walking along the pond. Probably one of the most calming things here to me is the sound of running water. That's a real calming effect. Having limited flies in this fall, cooler weather has also been helpful to the wolves. So that's what's going on. Been a busy week in wolf care, and with Luna's situation, lots of time and effort making sure that she's doing well. I did read messages about Grizzer, and again, we know that Grizzer does miss Oscar. We just had to do what was best for Oscar in that situation. Most of Grizzer's anxiety about the change in Oscar's presence on site has kind of waned. He's really now into observing a lot more of the wolf care staff interactions. He's getting a couple new staff training in. Definitely keyed into Tina. Tina's got a lot more boldness coming to the fence now, and Tina actually charged at him and barked at him, which is reminiscent of Oscar days. He got real excited and kind of ran along the fence with that. So we are aware of the change, and we obviously would have liked to be able to continue that relationship, but we have to do what's best for all animals, and that includes taking Oscar's needs into consideration. And it works out well for Oscar, and we're dealing with Grizzer, and he's doing fine. Like I say, very alert. Always keyed into the wolf yard. That's the greatest thing about having him where he is. He's right in the center of the mix. He gets to see what goes on in the exhibit pack. He gets to see what goes on in retirement. He knows who's coming in and out of the lab. He hears what's going on in and out of the lab, and for animals who are very curious, this is a good opportunity for Grizzer. Like I say, it keeps him stimulated, keeps him alert, and he's constantly watching the actions of wolf care staff. And we got a lot of things going on. We're going to be doing a little bit of fence alterations. One of the things we discovered, we had Luna actually in the front side of Grizzer's pen for that overnight observation. Grizzer was back in the back half of his habitat, locked off back there. And we discovered that we had some visual issues with the front of Grizzer's enclosure, so we're going to redesign some fence to be able to make sure that we can see into that holding kennel. So anyways, that went well. Grizzer's, like I say, is doing good. We now move on to Shadow. Shadow's having a little 13-year-old vocal cord issue, at least at the octave that he's chosen to howl. And so we see him try to start a couple of howls, and nothing coming out. And so it's a real high-pitched tone that he's trying. Not very productive. he kind of gives up the try to howl and retreats off the den and ends up doing a little bit of a face-off with an invite chase from Malik, but loses interest in that. Seems to be stimulated to communicate with the exhibit pack. There's some noise coming out of the exhibit pack of some chasing and dominance going on, and he seems to want to be able to communicate with them. But let's have a little bit of a challenge. So that makes him a little bit anxious, and you're going to see a little bit of pacing there, which is uncommon for Shadow. The cooler weather does mean we have less flies, but that means we have a lot of fly ointment to remove from their ears. It's great to cake on fly ointment to prevent their ears from getting bitten, but as the fall progresses, we need to get that fly ointment out of their ears, so that'll be something that we're working on. Then Shadow jumps back on the top of the den and tries a different octave and is successful in a howl, so we'll let you finish this YouTube listening to Shadow howl. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Woo!